Yeah, you read the title of this video, right? Today, we brought Virtual World cards to locals, and we're taking on the best deck of the format, being Tearlament Ishizu's. This is the final round of locals. The winner of this will make the top 4 cut. We end up getting lucky enough to win the Duel, so we're able to go first, starting things off with the terraforming, searching for that primeval planet. This will not only get us access to our Tearlament engine, but hopefully allow us to mill some Virtual World cards. So we end up adding the Merly from our deck to our hand, activating the Kowloon to place the Tcg onto the board, and then afterwards we're going to activate the copy of Sheeran in our hand, I believe, attempting to send the Merly to mill the top 3 cards of our deck to the grave, so a bunch of Virtual World cards. Unfortunately, our Merly does get hit with the Bestial Magnamut, and that's pretty bad for us because our hand was not good enough to actually continue after this interruption. We actually have another Bestial in our hand and a planet, so we didn't start off with the greatest of hands. We really needed this first fusion to go off, but sometimes not much you can really do, especially because we're playing a 60 card deck. Our opponent's going to start off with the planet, searching their copy of Sheeran, activating the Sheeran next, which is going to summon itself and then discard a monster, being Havness. At this point I realized I probably should just concede it. There's no way my one Bestial is really going to be enough to stop his onslaught, and considering we know he has Jerusalem in his hand, we know he has he has like a Bestial to stop our next play as well. Thankfully we don't die. Our opponent just goes battle phase, clears our Sheeran, and then just attacks us for a lot of damage. Proceeding on to the main phase 2, since he didn't choose to use Kelbeck, he's actually going to have to use other means to actually try to get access to his Tearlements engine. He's going to start off with the copy of Dark Sealing my Sheeran, linking those two off for a copy of Sprint. Sprint is going to send the Merly from his deck to the graveyard, which just allows him to start off all of his fusion plays, and there's nothing we can really do to stop it. Our planet's going to end up being destroyed. Our opponent's going to get their Kikala search, searching a Merly. And then, yeah, at this point, like I said, you know we have a planet and a Jerusalem in our hand. It's very difficult to come back from situations like this. So, as a general tip, if you're playing these tier mirrors and in a tournament, it may be wise to just concede at this point. There isn't really too much to gain from seeing what your opponent has access to in their deck, considering most decks are very standard nowadays. We saw the Forbidden Droplet, sure, but that was about the only piece of spice that we saw in our opponent's deck. So just conceding the game early makes it so you're able to actually have enough time to complete games 2 and 3 without having to go into time, which just can be a really unpleasant experience overall. Our opponent's going to end with the Rukalos and the Elf, which is a pretty daunting board for us to break, because Rukalos we know is either going to trade with our Druisworm, or it's going to trade with our Tier effect. So we're going to start off with the planet. Planet's going to add us any Tearlament monster from our deck to our hand, and we're in an interesting spot because I believe the card we drew was Foolish Burial of Goods, so that gets us access to our Virtual World engine, which can be pretty huge. So I was thinking, how can I actually make it so I'm able to play around his interruptions while getting access to our Virtual World engine. Our opponent summons back the Merly after I try to hit it with Druisworm. Merly's going to hit a couple of tier names and some shufflers. Our opponent's going to summon the Kaleido Heart. Kaleido Heart's going to shuffle back our Chuche, and the planet's going to get destroyed, and that's just really bad for us, because now all we have is this one Foolish Burial Goods to send any of our either our Tearlament Sulliek or Virtual World Qinglong. I still don't think it really matters, because as soon as we hit the grave with the Qinglong, our opponent's just going to activate one of the shufflers, and we end up losing. So we unfortunately lose game 1, but we're not out of it yet. Let's move on to games 2 and 3. Alright, so getting into games 2, we do choose to go first, and this time I believe our hand is a lot better. We're going to start things off with the Virtual World City, placing the Chuche on the board, activating the Lulu. You already know, if you are a Virtual World player, this is the Wombo combo, the hand you want to see. Virtual World City, Kowloon plus Lulu. This is probably the best combo the deck has. We end up using the Lily in our hand to dump another copy of Qinglong and Yan Yan to the graveyard, just for further future follow-up, activating the copy of Qinglong next. And it's important to note Qinglong actually doesn't send for cost, so you're going to be able to trigger the effect of your Tearlament monsters right afterwards, if you so choose, which is kind of the idea for the deck that I had. You're able to have that sort of synergy. The Virtual World monsters are also very good at making Beatrice, and of course Beatrice is just insane in the Tearlaments deck. I summon the Beatrice and then end up sending the copy of Sulliek to get access to our Tearlements engine. And since we haven't normal summoned yet, we can actually just normal summon the Rhino Heart and get started all of our Tearlements plays, which is kind of insane. Our opponent doesn't have the Bestial to stop us this time, so we're going to be able to resolve the copy of Kikalos. Kikalos is going to let us add or send any Tearlaments card from our deck. And the card we are going to end up grabbing is a copy of Havness. It's also important to note Havness is level 3, which combos pretty well with the Virtual World cards. So we end up summoning the Havness. We don't mill anything, but that's totally okay. We just wanted to get the Havness on the board for our Synchro plays, because in my mind I was thinking I want to end on a Virtual World board as opposed to a Tearlament board, because we weren't able to make Dweller anyways. So we're going to start off with the copy of Lao. Lao is going to send the Kowloon and summon back the Lily from the graveyard. Then activating the Chuche to increase the level of the Nian Nian by 3. So we're able to synchro off our Havness and Nian Nian for a copy of Shen Shen, which is actually surprisingly good against the Tearlament's Mirror. And then we're going to end up on a copy of Wallow as well. Important thing to note, I probably should have summoned Beatrice in attack. The reason being, I don't want him to just summon a Baguska and then swing into my Beatrice in defense and then make a Zeus afterwards, because that'd be kind of problematic. So I should have just summoned the Beatrice in attack mode, so that's not a possibility. But either way, we still end on a very powerful board. Shen Shen to stop things from hitting the grave from the field. We have a copy of Wallow, which is going to be able to disrupt one of his tier names. And then we have the copy of Beatrice to get access to actual tier disruption on our opponent's turn. Plus the copy of Chuche on the board, which essentially is a spot banish because of Shen Shen. So this is sort of the end board that you want to end on with this deck. So the Virtual World end board, plus like a Beatrice, which gets you access to your tier stuff. I just instantly destroy his planet with my Chuche. Don't want him getting access to either a copy of like Havness to put an extra monster board, or like Sheeran or something. He's just gonna go normal summon Rhino Heart effect to send any Tearlements monster from his deck to the grave. Since the Havness, I am going to use the copy of Wallow as opposed to the Bestial I have in my hand, just because he doesn't know about the Bestial. So I end up activating Wallow, and here he's going to actually chain his own Bestial in order to be able to summon it out to the field, which is totally okay. He has 2 bodies on the board now, but there still isn't too much he can actually do with the stuff he has right now. He's gonna enter battle and actually attack over my Wallow, unfortunately, because there are a total of 0 cards in his graveyard right now, so Wallow is actually not pumping up our monsters by anything. Our opponent's still in a tough spot nonetheless. They can make some link plays, but their link plays just really get them nowhere, because as soon as they summon in the dark, I'm going to activate the Beatrice to send our copy of Merly to actually fusion summon, fusing away our Kikalos just so he's able to steal it. And then I'm going to summon the Rukalos, which means if he tries to dark, we're just going to be able to negate the dark with the Rukalos anyways. Opponents, and once again in a very tough spot with very little way to actually break this board. So he just concedes and we move on to a game 3. So we're able to take down game 2. Let's see how we can do in game 3. Alright, so getting into game 3, our opponent is of course going to start off with a copy of Scream, and then activate a copy of Sheeran from his hand, which essentially is going to allow him to mill 6 cards from the top of his deck to the grave. He discards Viner the Herald, which is interesting. I think that speaks volumes about the strength of his hand. He doesn't hit anything off the Sheeran initially, and chooses not to Kelbeck. Only uses the Scream to mill 3, and he hits a Scream, and another Kelbeck, and a Havness. We do have the Druid's Worm to stop the Havness, which is great. So now essentially his Scream is grabbing him, essentially probably the only form of disruption that he's actually going to be able to have on our turn, hopefully. So that Druid's Worm is coming in clutch right now. He's going to activate the Keldo, discarding Medora in his hand. So we can see his hand wasn't very great. It's just a bunch of Ishizu cards and that one Sheeran. He's going to grab a Kelbeck to his hand. And then from here, I'm thinking he can make like a card like a Abyss Dweller or something, but he ends up normal summoning the Kelbeck, makes that Dweller, sets the Sulliek, passes it over to us. Definitely okay with this, even though we're under Dweller. As long as we don't give him more mills with this Scream, I think we should be good. So we are going to just attempt to enter battle phase with the Druid's Worm that we have on the board. It threatens his Sheeran, and as well as it also threatens his Dweller, even though we're more concerned about the Sheeran. We just don't want him to mill extra cards off the screen when we know his hand was really bad. In the battlefield, he's going to activate Sulliek, interestingly enough, to negate the Druid's Worm and then activate the Sheeran Diffusion Summon. It ultimately doesn't accomplish that much because he's not summoning like an actual tier monster, he's just summoning a Mud Dragon. Mud Dragon's fine. That just gives me the chance to attack over his Dweller, which is perfect. And then Now he has no way to trigger the Tearlaments Scream on his board because he doesn't have control of Tier Monster. So we are pretty golden when we are able to grab our Tier Monster off of our Primeval Planet. All we have to deal with are 2 Shufflers that we know in his graveyard, which, albeit is still problematic, I still think we're in a very good spot compared to where he is right now. We're going to activate Emergency Teleport, summoning out the Lulu from our deck, and then this is where it gets cool. Because we're gonna normal summon the copy of Havness, turn them into a copy of Star's Charge Warrior to draw a card. So now we have 2 level 6s on the board, and at this point we're gonna be able to just summon Beatrice. Like, even though we're under a copy of Abyss Solar, it's totally okay, because this Beatrice is gonna allow us to set up our graveyard for the next turn and force out one of the Shufflers right now. So what we're gonna do with the Beatrice is end up sending our own Medora just to threaten a Shuffler on his turn. He actually doesn't use the Shuffler during the end phase, which is interesting. He chooses to do it in main phase instead, and this is a cool play by him, if I'm being honest. Of course I'm going to chain it. There's no reason for me not to chain it. Of course I get to trigger my own planet, I get to pop his stuff. Even though I pop the Scream, like, it's okay, he's getting a trap that shouldn't do anything. But then what he does next, he activates Talents. So it turns out he was trying to force out my Medora using his Shufflers, so he can play the Talents. Good move by him. I should have been able to pick up on it, I think. Because even if he had Rhino Heart or something, he could have just normal the Rhino Heart and then chained his Shufflers to my Shufflers when the Rhino Heart successfully resolved. I'm going to activate Beatrice, also a mistake by me, on Resolution for some reason. It really makes no sense for me to do it on Resolution. I should have just done it in response to the tactics. Because now he drew the copy of Havness, and he gets a free monster on the board, which is really bad for me. I really just should not have let that happen. I'm going to send the Sullyx. Sullyx going to add me Rhino Heart from my deck to my hand. So after our opponent summons out the copy of Havness, he's going to link the Havness and the Mud Dragon for a copy of Dark. I'm going to trigger my Havness, which doesn't mill anything, unfortunately. Our opponent's going to try to see if he can take anything from our graveyard other than a Jerusalem. He takes it. Even though our Jerusalem ends up sending his Sprint, it doesn't really matter for him because now his tier plays are started. So you can see how it all kind of spiraled out as soon as we messed up that one thing where we just didn't use Beatrice in response to the Talents. So our opponent's going to activate the Kikalos he summoned here to grab any Tearlament card from his deck to his hand. He's going to grab the copy of Merly. Next up, he's going to activate the kit on itself. We don't have any other disruption at this point. It's important to note that our side card is a Chuchi or something, so we actually don't have any way to stop him. He's just going to mill 8 cards, which are pretty good. He ends up hitting more Shufflers, a Havness, a Diviner, and a Rhino Heart. He's going to use the Rhino Heart as well as the Havness Diffusion Summon. And once again, we are just in a bad spot. We don't have any way to stop any of this from happening. Our opponent's going to end up summoning the Rhino Heart by just sending the Crime from his deck to his hand, from his hand to the grave, and then the Crime's going to grab back one of his banished tier monsters as well, which is really bad. Really, really bad for us. You can see how quickly it spiraled. When we were strictly in control of the match, it quickly spiraled out of control. Our opponent's going to just enter battle phase, clear our board, deal 500 damage. It's also important to note we're closing in on time, so we're both very low on time, and I'm slightly up. I'm going to activate the Qinglong to negate the Rukalos next because we do need access to our virtual worlds to actually be able to crack this board. We have to deal with the Kaleido Hard Spin, a Rukalos negation potentially, and a Sullyek. So we're still dealing with quite a bit here. I'm going to activate the Qinglong in the graveyard to banish itself, add a Lulu from my deck to my hand. I'm going to then activate the Chuche, just flipping itself up. Not using its effect, but it's important to note it is currently live. So now we have a way to kind of turn off his Sullyek, in a sense, or just make it so like he's just never going to be able to use any of his Sullyk's effect. We're going to activate the Lulu next, targeting the Chuche. We're going to grab a copy of Lalo since we do have the Lily in the graveyard. Our opponent's just going to activate the copy of Sullyek next to negate the Lulu, and I decided not to stop it. I decided to save the Chuche for something else. He's going to activate the copy of Kaleido Heart to shuffle back our Lulu, which is totally okay. We have the Lala to summon out the Lily from our graveyard, and now from here we're going to be able to make that rank 6 being Wallow. What I should have done here is just activate Chuche, pop the Kaleido Heart. When he uses effect, chain Wallow to shuffle it back. We still have a disruption on his turn. Instead of just being greedy here and trying to set his Pellerino, because we know he has Shufflers in the graveyard, we should definitely just be able to stop. We should definitely just have done the play I mentioned and left him on absolutely no resources other than this one Havness. So slight mistake on my part. His Havness is gonna mill a bunch of tier names. We do have the Saronir to stop the Merly that he's using. He ends up using the other Shuffler, so my Saronir doesn't come down, but that's okay. We end up actually winning because time was called, but I think had I played a couple of things more correctly, I definitely should have been winning this game regardless. Either way though, still a pretty good showing for Virtual Worlds considering this was against the best deck in the format. If you guys enjoyed this type of content, let me know by leaving a like, commenting, and subscribing. But that being said, I just want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.